Okay, Pirates fans, here comes your ace. Paul Skenes is in the show. It's a prospect profile on the college star. Here he is. It's Scotty Braun, JJ Cooper, and Geoff Pontes from Baseball America. Paul Skenes has the potential to be one of the top starters in Major League Baseball. JJ, he better be, because the Pirates invested a lot in this young man. And I know there have been a lot of pitching injuries in our game this year, but Pirates fans hope that he is on the mound because they have taken care of him, at least for now. So what do you think he could look like on the big league mound?
We've seen pretty much through a dominant season at LSU in 2023. Now we're going to see it in the big leagues. This is a guy who not only has truly top tier stuff, but the differentiator, the separator that you're kind of makes you really hopeful that this can be the ace of the Pirates rotation in the very near and the midterm future, is that he really has that competitiveness, that drive, that ability to turn over a lineup multiple times in addition to having, the 100, 101, 102 mile an hour fastball. Geoff, you got to see it. I'm jealous. You got to see it at the spring breakout game where I think that probably that battle between him and Jackson Holiday is one of the highlights of spring training this year. But having seen it in person, what jumps out to you about Paul Skenes?
Yeah, I think it's just the ability to command that really fearsome stuff, that 100+ mile per hour fastball. And I think the other thing that stuck out to me over the course of that period was just how he's expanded the pitch mix. He showed that splinter. There's a changeup that he's throwing now as well. There's a makings of a curveball that's different from the slider. Even the slider that he was throwing in the spring breakout game looked different from the slider that he had at LSU. And, I've heard some talk that he has a couple different slider shapes. So I think that sort of alleviates any questions we had in terms of if this guy just being a fastball slider guy. I think he's a lot more than that.
Okay, Geoff, I'm also going to ask, because you're kind of our pitch shape guru. You love to dive into the data in addition to seeing it and talking to scouts and all that. And coming out of the draft, the concern, I want you to kind of explain to people, like, if you're a pretty diehard baseball fan, but one who's maybe not looking at IVBs and VAAs and all that, you might hear when I say, okay, he's 100, 101, 102. That's got to be one of the best pure fastballs in the game. But there were some concerns about it. What were the concerns, and what do you think about, like, is Paul Skenes going to be able to dominate with his fastball, or is it more of a useful pitch for him?
Yeah, I think that remains to be seen at the major league level. Certainly, what we saw in the minor leagues, it certainly looks like it's going to be an effective pitch, and maybe those concerns were a little bit heightened in an age where we really do break down so many variables of a pitcher's arsenal, and there's always sort of something that you can pick nits with. But when we talk about the IVB, it's just in comparison to what we typically consider to be a plus fastball. It's going to have velocity, of course, but it has to have one of two components as well, typically. And that is either a lot of ride or a lot of sink, or a lot of arm side run with ride or a lot of arm side run with sink. And he kind of doesn't have that. He has what typically we would call a dead zone fastball, meaning it's sort of in between those two shapes and doesn't have sort of those plus characteristics that we look for. Obviously doesn't have a super low release height, and he's not super deceptive in terms of this arm action or anything like that, but he throws 100 miles per hour and he throws it with command. And I think, when pitches, and we've seen this, hit a certain velocity threshold that Skenes seems to sit at as a starter, it sort of alleviates some of the concerns in terms of movement. He does get some arm side run in that pitch. So I think just based on what we've seen in college, what we've seen professionally, it's less of a concern for me now. But coming out of the draft, talking to a lot of analysts behind the scenes who are now a huge component of which players get drafted. It's not just area scouts and scouting directors. The analytics department has a huge impact on these picks. That was definitely a concern with Skenes. Is this guy going to be able to miss bats with this fastball? And if not, is it going to just be the slider, or are there other secondaries? And it looks like he's showing those other secondaries, but also the fastball's eating right now, man.
Yeah. So we're going to see that play out on a major league mound. JJ, I'm curious about your perspective on the Pirates long term, because this is a team that's been building back up for a while. They have to operate well at the margins. They do not spend in free agency. They have really strict guidance from ownership to never go that route on a long-term big money basis. So when they're going through this rebuild period and they have top picks like Skenes, they need to hit on those. They need to find some of those diamond in the rough picks, and then usually also sign up some of these guys to extensions early on. The thing that I'm excited about for Pirates fans is the young pitching that's coming through right now. And I know, you go back in the day with Ray Searage and some of the work that he was able to do, it worked for a while and then it didn't. And you saw a lot of pitching talent leave Pittsburgh and then thrive elsewhere. So where do you think the Pirates are at over the next few years?
It's definitely looking better than it's looked for quite a while. The emergence of Mitch Keller into a useful starter was key for that. Jared Jones arriving. We have Bubba Chandler and Anthony Solometo and other guys coming up as well. But the other thing that did stand out coming into 24, I kind of liked the fact that they did at least spend a little bit of money. Obviously, these are the Pirates. They're not going to go out and contend to sign a Yamamoto or a Blake Snell or anyone like that. But they did get some guys. They've got a Michael Taylor. They got an Aroldis Chapman. They got guys who made this team better and deeper, and also allowed. They last year I felt like in 23 they had some 4A outfielders who were kind of in regular roles. Now they're in kind of part-time roles. That's better for them. They've kind of moved guys down the spectrum to smaller role players for guys who weren't really able to do more than that, and build around stars. And obviously, O'Neal Cruz is a key part of that as well. Brian Reynolds is a key part of that as well. This is a team that has to hit on a lot of these guys because they don't have a lot of a margin for error, but they are showing, I would say recently, they're hitting on more of these guys, and that gives them at least a shot. The good news also is they're in a competitive division, but a division, this isn't the NL East where you're saying, okay, can you keep up with the Braves? Can you keep up with the Phillies? There's not a whole lot of teams who are going to be out there spending $200 million plus to try to just run away with the division.
Yeah, and Jeff, Ben Cherington came in with the 5-year plan. That's usually what a new GM will get. So we're right around that time period. How do you evaluate it?
Yeah, I think with the resources that he's had, he's done a tremendous job in terms of just acquiring talent through the draft and other possible avenues. There's a lot of exciting star talent on both sides of the ball here. And I think that's something that, as a Pirates fan, you sort of got to embrace, because as you brought up earlier, this isn't a team that's going to go out and get aggressive in free agency or probably even be much of a player at all in free agency. So it's got to be homegrown talent. They've got to, learn to play as a unit. They got to have guys in the pitching rotation that can develop into number ones, number twos, number threes. Because, long term, not only is that going to allow you to win some games, but on the back end of it, you're going to probably be trading a lot of these guys away for the next set of players and picks, et cetera, because that's really the only way that they're ever going to be able to maintain this.
Okay, so let's sum it up here at the end for the Pirates fans, the Paul Skenes fans, and just the the LSU fans, the top prospect fans. Put the injury questions aside because those pop up for any pitcher, right? So just assume that he's healthy. Will Paul Skenes be a number one starter in the big leagues? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Number one, not a 2, a 1.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Scott, where's Hunter Green for you? Is he a 2? A future 2?
He's not a 1. He's not a 1 right now.
Yeah.
I would say a 2 or a 3.
I would say the Hunter Green type, or at least early career, where there are flashes of greatness and there are days where it's just not all together is kind of where I'm expecting, at least in the short to midterm. Then durability, continuing to develop is what gets you to that number one. I don't expect him to be a number one in year 1 or year 2. I'm hoping to see, though, like what we saw with Hunter Green. Hunter Green had some problems early on in his big league career with his fastball, even though he could throw 100, 101, 102. But as he kind of settled in, you do see times where Hunter Green looks pretty dominant. Jeff, maybe I'm being a little light on Paul Skenes, but what do you think?
Yeah, I was more of a doubting Thomas at draft time, just in terms of, is this guy going to be number one? Anytime I start to see some of the crazy comps on any amateur player with like the best in Steven Strasburg it starts to give me the shakes, and I start to think about Kevin Maiton's, Mickey Mantle comps, etc. So that's the kind of stuff that typically throws me off. But after seeing this guy, watching him pitch in the minor leagues, and just the utter dominance that we've observed, I do think this guy has an opportunity to be a number one and be a number one pretty quickly. And we've seen, him be durable and be the guy, for LSU in an SEC season when it seemed like, guys on check swings were hitting the ball 350 feet. So, I do think there has to be some sort of weight that's put into that. I'm a converted Paul Skenes truther here. So yeah, I do think that he has the stuff to be there, and just some of the changes he's made in the arsenal and things that he's able to do in his own. And I think he has a bulldog mentality. He knows what he's doing. He's there to kill some guys. He doesn't want to answer any questions. He just wants to throw strikes and chew bubble gum,
And comment below on this video with your thoughts. If you're listening to the mini pod version of this, maybe a rating review on the BA podcast page to let us know your thoughts on Paul Skenes and these prospect profiles that we do whenever someone gets called up to the show and they're a big deal on Baseball America's list. Make sure you subscribe to Baseball America as well. And whenever there's a top prospect getting called up, we'll have one of these for you.